right. So this Saturday, we saw some classic AFC North showdowns as the Baltimore Ravens trounced the Cleveland Browns 35-10, and the Cincinnati Bengals kept their playoff hopes alive, winning 19-17 over the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to talk about both of these games, and obviously break down exactly who won, why they won, etc. But my just general thoughts is this time of year, you start to see how much the quarterback position really matters. I mean, obviously, the talent gap that's there between Baltimore and Cleveland. Lamar Jackson potentially on the verge of winning his third MVP, the only quarterback now in NFL history to have a 40 plus passing touchdown season with less than 5 interceptions, the only quarterback now in NFL history to have 4,000 plus passing yards and 800 plus rushing yards. Like, Lamar's on another level. I believe he now has the second best quarterback passer rating ever to an Aaron Rodgers season. Like, for a single season. Lamar is just on another level this year. It's the best I've ever seen him as a passer. And if you were a numbers guy, strictly, Lamar Jackson's your MVP. We'll talk about that a little bit more at length for myself when we get to the Ravens game. And for the Bengals versus Steelers, Joe Burrow didn't play a perfect game, but he made the plays early on since he needed them. He continuously got them in field goal range after the first quarter and just got them far enough along. And you saw Russ make a couple mistakes in the fourth quarter. That rush attempt, instead of throwing the ball away, eating the time off the clock. You just see this time of year how important it is to have an elite quarterback, or just a really good one. You know, quarterback and head coach obviously gets hammered down all the time, but you look around in the playoffs, if the Bengals miss, Burrow's the only, top tier guy missing the playoffs at the quarterback position. And you look at the head coaches that are in the playoffs: Harbaugh's, Reed, LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell, Campbell. Not many good coaches miss the playoffs either. There's a lot that goes into football, but sometimes things could be a little basic. Now let us talk about, to open, that Bengals and Steelers game just wrapped up here. For starters, Jamar Chase, 10 for 96 and a touchdown. The guy is going to win a triple crown. He had an outstanding year, tied the Bengals single season touchdown record. He's 18 receptions ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's like 221 yards ahead of Justin Jefferson, 5 touchdowns ahead of Terry McLaurin and Amon-Ra. Like, the guy is having an unreal season. And for my OGs or anybody that follows me on Twitter, you saw I tweeted this on September 2nd. The Bengals are making a mistake and wasting time by not giving Jamar Chase an extension. After this year, the price tag has rightfully so gone up, regardless of whether or not this team makes the playoffs. And if they miss, I do think they should have some internal questions about Zach Taylor, but there should be none regarding Jamar Chase and just how good he is. I tweeted this out as well, but who I think is the best wide receiver in football just depends. Who have I seen play football more recently? Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson? That's kind of where I'm at this point. You did see how much T. Higgins meant to this offense, though. When he left the game with an ankle injury, they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. And some of that, don't get me wrong, is Pittsburgh's defense. Pittsburgh is a quality defensive unit. But when Joey Porter was able to just shadow Jamar Chase and they were really able to focus in on him, and Chase Brown's not in this game, and then T. Higgins is out, you really saw Pittsburgh's defense be able to clamp down on Joe Burrow in this Bengals offense. But that said, just enough was done. Pittsburgh now, they've lost 4 straight. Cincinnati has won 5 straight. So obviously there's a sense of momentum with the Bengals that there isn't with the Pittsburgh Steelers. For Cincinnati, they still need the Chiefs to win and the Jets to win for them to get into the playoffs. But I tweeted this out during the game. Buffalo doesn't want to see Cincinnati in the playoffs. And it's not me saying that Cincinnati is, my pick. I'm going to pick them to beat the Bills, or they're going to beat the Bills. You don't hear what I'm not saying there. But if you're the Buffalo Bills, when you get to a playoffs, looking across from you, if you had the option of Joe Burrow, who has come into your house previously in the playoffs and spanked you, Bo Nix, who is in his first ever NFL playoff game, or Tua Tagovailoa in January in Buffalo, New York, The last guy on that list that you want is easily Joe Burrow. Now, you could have the debate. They might want to play the Dolphins over the Broncos or however that might be, or vice versa, because the Dolphins are in the division. Have that debate with yourself. But last on that list will be the Cincinnati Bengals, a team with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown should be back, Trey Hendrickson, who was the freaking MVP of this game for the Bengals, mind you, 3.5 sacks. The guy should be getting Defensive Player of the Year considerations without a doubt. That is a scary team. The Bengals did all they could. The slow start again, the loss to the Patriots week 1, it all looms large. And, it goes back to something I said a couple weeks ago where I said, if the Bengals miss the playoffs, I think they got to take a look at the head coaching spot in Zach Taylor. One, because if their head coaching job opens up with Burrow and Chase and Trey Hendrickson and potentially keeping T. Higgins, they are the most attractive spot. Vrabel would go there in an instant. But two, the slow starts, Zach Taylor is very clearly the fourth best head coach, in that division. Tomlin, Harbaugh, Stefanski. You're taking them all over Zach Taylor. So something to think about there if you are a Bengals fan. For Pittsburgh, they're likely now going to be facing Baltimore. I would imagine the Chargers would way rather play Houston than Baltimore. The Chargers play the Raiders. They'll go out there, they'll try, they'll probably pick up that victory. And for Pittsburgh, you're looking at a 4-game losing streak here. Haven't won a football game in a month. The offense has become a little bit more predictable. The secondary hasn't held up very strong. And you're likely to face a Baltimore team that has been hitting their stride, both offensively and defensively. A team that did beat you pretty bad the last time you played. And, we'll talk about the offseason more when we get there. But for Pittsburgh, you got to start thinking, is Russ a guy we want to bring back? Is he a guy we want to have an investment in? Do we love this weapons room? Are we committed to bringing back Najee Harris? Is George Pickens a true one? Held to a donut in this game. Obviously, Freiermuth 8 for 85 and a touchdown has been consistently great all year, but there are some serious questions and concerns that Pittsburgh has to ask themselves. And it's really a double-edged sword for Steelers fans at this point, because on one hand, you know that you're going to be above 500. You know that you're going to be a playoff team. You know that you're going to be solid. But it's also felt like you know that you're not going to be great. You know that you're not going to be excellent. You're going to win 9-10 games, maybe 11, and maybe win a playoff game. And that's kind of felt like Pittsburgh's ceiling for the last 5 to 10 years, right? And some of it's because of just how good Mike Tomlin is. Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges, Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson, doesn't matter. We're winning 9-10 games, we're getting to the playoffs. And on one hand, that's great. On the other hand, it doesn't ever really put you in a position to improve on what you have. I would take a shot on a second, third round quarterback if I was Pittsburgh. There are some guys with some talent, whether it's Milrow, Dart, somebody else with some intangibles, and let them sit for a year behind Russ. But we'll see where Pittsburgh goes. I actually think that potentially them versus Baltimore works out a little bit better for them, just because, you've had success, I'll say, against Lamar Jackson, familiarity with an opponent. They could upset them, but I mean, after what I've seen from Pittsburgh in the last month, how could you look at this team and think that they're built to go on a run? And Cincinnati, I don't think is built to go on a Super Bowl run either, by the way. I saw a post from FanDuel that said that Cincinnati was the most bet team over the last 24 hours to win the Super Bowl. Now I get it, some of that has to do with odds, but I just don't believe that this team could hold up for a stretch of 4 straight, 3 road games and then 4 straight games in general against high talent teams. I just don't think the defense would hold up, but what Burrow has done has certainly been impressive. If Cincinnati had 11-12 wins, I think the MVP conversation, he would certainly be in it. Jamar, if Saquon didn't rush for 2,000 yards, would be an easy offensive player of the year, and winning the Triple Crown, he's going to be in conversations. The defense has to get a little bit better, but Cincinnati, I've been impressed with how they've played in the second half of the year, but I was so disappointed with how they were in the first half of the year that now we end up with their playoff fate not in their hands. And then we look at this Ravens-Browns game. Not really anything too crazy. Cleveland's out there throwing out Bailey Zappi and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. We all kind of knew where this was going to go. It was going to be a Baltimore domination fest. Derrick Henry, 20 carries, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just a phenomenal stretch of football. And as the weather gets colder, you start to realize, like, this is why Baltimore brought in Derrick Henry. Last year in the playoffs, why did everybody say that they lost to Kansas City? Because they didn't run the ball. They brought in a guy that they could fully lean on and believe in. And Derrick Henry wasn't having success early on in this game, but what did they do? They stuck with the run, they leaned on them, and Derrick Henry eventually, to kind of just nail and coffin in this game, ran a 43-yard touchdown. Lamar was solid. It wasn't his perfect day. Flowers got hurt, which is certainly concerning, especially if you're going to have a playoff matchup versus Pittsburgh, a team who knows you well. You want to be fully equipped for that game. Going to be asking a lot more of Lamar, an emotional game, division rival, home playoff game, Super Bowl expectations. Without your number one wide receiver could be very, very tough. Having Henry now looms bigger than ever. I do think they'd still have enough offensively to beat Pittsburgh, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. In terms of this game, I thought it was pretty clear Baltimore realized, like, hey, we have to win this game to ensure that we win the division and are the 3 seed, but we also know that we're playing Cleveland. And that's kind of the attitude that I felt there. Lamar was trying some fun stuff out, and I think what's most impressive is just some of the statistical milestones he hit. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, first quarterback ever with 40-plus passing touchdowns and less than 5 interceptions. For a guy that was called a running back a few years ago, talk about an achievement, talk about a come up. The first quarterback ever with 4,000 plus passing yards and 800 plus rushing yards in a season. Lamar Jackson, truly one of one. And if he won the MVP, I'd have no qualms about it. I also don't really fully love the argument that Josh Allen should win it because Lamar won it last year. Lamar was on a 15-win team, doing what he was doing, a very similar season to what Josh Allen's doing this year. Josh Allen's on a 13-win team to Lamar's 12. And when you look at the stats, Lamar is clearly having a better statistical year. Some of it just comes down to eye test. Who do you prefer? And it's fine if the votes lean Josh Allen, but I don't love the argument. Baltimore's defense was fine, but again, Zappy and DTR. And this game just highlighted to me how badly the Cleveland Browns just need that top 3 pick. I mean, you've seen it the last couple of weeks, but going into next year, if they keep everybody in, they will need to do their best work to retain a Myles Garrett. But you come back into next year with a running back duo of Jerome Ford and Nick Chubb, which is solid. Jerry Jeudy, who broke out this year as a Pro Bowl receiver. Elijah Moore, David Njoku. Maybe you bring in another guy. That offensive line has some decent pieces on it. A very solid defense with guys like Garrett, JOK, Denzel Ward. Stefanski is a former coach of the year. And you just get a competent quarterback in there. And you might get a Shador or a Cam Ward at this point. The Browns could be in the playoff mix, but they desperately need an answer at the quarterback position. They restructured Deshaun Watson's contract so they could basically cut him loose after the next year and be fine with it and eat the money. But Shador Sanders, Cam Ward, starting to feel like a Cleveland Brown for me. But those are my thoughts on these AFC North matchups. As always, be sure to let me know yours in the comment section down below. If you're new to the channel and you love the NFL, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Ton of great content coming out for the NFL playoffs. I will be back up here tomorrow night to react to the Vikings and Lions Sunday Night Football game, Week 18. A ton on the line there. 1 versus 5 seed, NFC North on the line. You don't want to miss that. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button on this video. Good for the algorithm. Comment your thoughts on these games. Also good for the algorithm. Really looking to grow as we head into the playoffs and get some more eyes on the channel. I appreciate the support. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.